Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let me tell you why sometimes when you look at file names on your Mac, they have extensions, and sometimes they don't. MacMost is supported by more than 500 viewers just like you. Go to MacMost.com/Patreon. There you can read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. So when you're looking at files in the Finder, sometimes it could be confusing as to why you see file extensions for some files, but you don't see them for other files. If you want to see them for all files, it's easy to turn on a single preference in the Finder and then you see all file extensions. But if you have that turned off, then you get a mix. Why is that? What causes some files to show extensions while others don't? So here I have some files in the Finder and I can see that some of them show a file extension and others do not. Here's one with a .rtf file extension and here's one that has no file extension at all. Now if I want to force the Finder to show file extensions for every file that has one, I can do that by going to Finder, Preferences, then go to Advanced, and then turn on Show All File Name Extensions. And if I do that, you can see every single file here has the extension shown. If I turn it off, some of them hide the file extension but others do not. So what's the difference? Well, let's take a look at the information for these files. So with the first file selected, I'm going to choose File, Get Info, or Command I, and it will show me for this file that the file name and extension does indeed include the extension there, but hide extension is turned off. It's an option here under Name and Extension. If you don't see it, you may have to open up the Name and Extension section. If I turn on Hide Extension, you can see the extension is now hidden. Now, sure enough, if I were to select a file that has no extension and do Command I for Get Info, you could see here that Hide Extension is indeed checked. That's why the extension is hidden. So I can turn that off if I want to show the extension for that particular file, and turn it on if I don't want to show the extension. So every file has this checkbox and can either show or hide its own extension. Now if I want to change it for several files, I can. I can select several files. Instead of doing Command I for Get Info, I'm going to hold the Option key down and choose Show Inspector. Show Inspector not only creates a persistent window that will show me info for whatever is selected, but if I have more than one item selected, it'll simply say 2 items up here and still allow me to make changes across those items, like for instance the Hide Extension checkbox. I can turn it off for both of those at the same time or on for both of those at the same time. Now what could be a little confusing is why do some files have those turned off and others have those turned on? For instance, here's a numbers document. If I look at that one, I could see Hide Extension is turned on. Here's another numbers document and if I look at that one I could see Hide Extension is turned off. Why were these created differently? Well, it's pretty simple. When you create a new file, it simply follows the preference in Finder Preferences Advanced as to whether this checkbox is checked here. So right now I have it turned off. So if I go to create a new file, say in Pages, and let's say it's called as Test3 and I will save it as Test3, you can see Test3 has the file extension. That checkbox is turned off, which matches the Finder preference right here. Turned off. If I now turn it on and I create a new document in Pages and call that one Test4 and save it. Now if I look at the info for this document here, you could see that's checked and that matches the Finder preference right here. So I can uncheck this now and notice how Test4 has no file extension and Test3 has a file extension because it's following the setting I had in the Finder when I created the file. And that's how people end up with a mix of some files with the file extension being shown and others with it not. If I didn't want to use file extensions in most cases, it is pretty easy for me to select everything, to Command Option I, turn this on for all of them, and you can see it's on. And now I'll have no file extensions except when I go to Finder Preferences and turn this on. So what's the right way to go? Well, if you always want to see file extensions like I do, then you just have that setting turned on in the Finder and don't worry about it. You'll always see extensions. If on the other hand you'd rather not see them, just have it always turned off. And if you want to see them temporarily, then turn that preference on in the Finder. But remember to turn it off right away afterwards. Otherwise you're going to end up turning on file extensions for any new documents you create. It's easy to correct the problem if you've accidentally turned it on for a view. Just use the inspector or get info on that file and turn it off. I publish new tutorials every weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. Then hit the little bell icon to get notifications for each new tutorial.